Welcome to Untapped, Knowledge for College, presented by the College Knowledge Foundation. Join us as we untap the world of college admissions, financial aid, and student life through collective wisdom and engaging conversations.
Welcome to another episode of Untapped, Knowledge for College. I'm your host, Donovan Lindsay, founder and presenter at College Knowledge Foundation. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible colleagues and friends, Katie Avis and Mackenzie Kirsch. I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with both of them in admissions for quite a few years, and also they have been invaluable assets and members of the College Knowledge team for the past couple of years since getting started. Katie and Mackenzie bring both a wealth of knowledge, not just from admissions, but various other departments they've worked at across multiple universities. Their diverse perspectives and deep understanding of the college admissions process have helped countless students navigate their journey in higher education. Today, we will be diving deep into the insights they've gained from their experiences and how they continue to empower students and people just every day in their everyday lives. So, Katie, Mackenzie, welcome.
Thanks.
So I'm excited today because we're talking about a topic that I would say, know much about myself when I was a prospective student. When I was looking at colleges, we're talking about college fairs. So just to start off, what if we could begin to just tell the students and the families, what exactly is a college fair, and why would you say something like attending a college fair would be important? And we'll start with you, Katie.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I also did not have a lot of experience with college fairs when I was maneuvering my college search process. So had I known it was a resource that was available, I think that would have been absolutely incredible. So I'm glad we are talking about it today. And it's something that I know is near and dear to my heart. College fairs are magical things, right? They are this opportunity to bring together such a valuable collection of people that represent these institutions that students might end up at for, however long they are pursuing a college degree. And I don't know, I like to think that it's almost like you're bringing Google to life, right? Because you have all this information at your fingertips. You just have to walk to the different tables to be able to access it rather than typing with your fingertips. So I'm really excited that we're going to be diving into that tonight.
Yeah, Mackenzie, why would you say for a student attending a college fair would even be something that they should do as they begin their college search?
Yeah, I love the bringing Google to life example or analogy because it is so true. Because you're able to get a taste of universities and colleges that could be all across the country or up and down a certain coast or different states that realistically you're not going to be able to get to all of those college campuses. But those representatives at that college fair are really the face of that university or college that you're going to get to interact with. And typically the people working there are admissions counselors or folks that work in the admissions office. So they really are the experts in kind of the life and blood of whatever institution you're looking at. And so that you can get yourself a really good sense of their culture, their vibe on campus, what academic programs they're offering. And again, it's all in one gymnasium or in one cafeteria rather than having to drive to 8 different campuses all across different states. So I think it's just good bang for your buck. Typically they are free, but good bang for your buck in the sense that you're getting a flavor of a bunch of different places. And then also if you're able to go and see places down the road, you might be able to kind of whittle down your choices from those 10 places to 3 or 4 that you really liked at the college fair, and then kind of continue on the college search process that way.
So when looking at, let's say someone's listening to this and they want to attend a college fair, what would you say, Mackenzie, would be ways that they can, research them? Like, how would they know these things exist, and where could they find where they can potentially attend them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I certainly did not take advantage of my guidance counselor office when I was in high school, and do not make my mistake. Go talk to your guidance counselors, ask them what college fairs that your own high school might be hosting, other ones that might be going on in the area. So there are all different types of college fairs. Sometimes high schools host their own, sometimes your local town or community will hold them, and other times there's national or ones in nearby cities. So there's a plethora of different ways to kind of participate in a college fair, but your guidance counselor in that office really should know the ones nearby. So talk to them, ask them. They should have a sense of what's going on around your area. And then of course, there's always Google and internet searching. You can kind of go to there as well. I think maybe that you could start there. And then I think, again, your guidance counselors are going to be the experts. And so they can be helpful in pointing you to ones that might be better use of your time, or making sure that the information online isn't outdated, because sometimes college fairs happen every single year. You don't want to look at the date from 2023 and you're looking to go in 2024. So always good to confirm with a reliable source. And your parents or family nearby or other friends, you guys can always chat to and learn from your peers and family members nearby who also might know of different college fairs going on.
Anything to add to that, Katie?
Just to emphasize, I think what Mackenzie said cannot be understated. Guidance counselors really are such great resources, especially because of the fact that many of them are going out of their way to cultivate relationships with admissions counselors or recruiters from different institutions, so they can get this information to have available for students, and in addition to have information about schools available and things like that. But they're the ones that are taking the time to get to know the counselors, to get this awesome information. It's definitely a shame for people not to know about it and then to not be able to take advantage of it. So definitely just want to emphasize everything that Mackenzie said.
One thing that I'll stress some more too is making sure that you're connecting with the high school counseling office, because that's something that I feel is extremely undervalued. Like, they have so many things going on, but if you have questions, ask them. Because I remember myself, for instance, I had a really good high school counseling office, but I realized from working in college admissions, that's not the case. Whether it was me, going, just talking with people that and telling me about their experience, or walking into a high school at times, and I'm like, you can just tell how kind of with it they are and how with it the students are when you're at a high school visiting. But for me, I remember walking to my high school counselor's office, and she asked me, she's like, Donovan, well, give me an update, where have you applied? Because she would check in with all of the students on her caseload, which was amazing. But I told her, I told her where I applied, and she just like looked at me, and because I told her I applied to one place. And that night prior, I was having the same debate with my mom about only applying to one place. And she looked at me and she's like, well, yeah, she's right. You need to apply to more than one place. So I think I applied to like 2 or so more, but I know that's not the level of, always of attention that the students are getting at some of those schools. So it has to be at times for them to reach out on their own and really, take the bull by the horns and begin to do some research on their own. So when would you say, Katie, would be a good time for students to actually begin to even look at going to a college fair?
Yes, absolutely. Earlier is best, I would say. I always would recommend to students when I would get to talk to them at college fairs. Even if you're a sophomore, that's okay. That's awesome. What's different is, depending on where you are in your high school career, how you are able to utilize college fairs is going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. And that's why they're there, right? It's so that everybody can access whatever information is going to be the most beneficial to them. So the reason that I always emphasize for students to start as soon as possible, even if you are a sophomore, even if you're a freshman, it never hurts to start early, so you have plenty of time to really look into what about college is going to be of interest to you. Because so many colleges, universities, institutions, every single one is a little bit different, whether it's how big or small it is, whether it's wherever it's located, what kind of academics it focuses on, what kind of curricular or extracurricular, excuse me, that are offered as well.
Mhm.
So the earlier you can start, the earlier you can, one, start to explore the different categories that you are going to want to think about. Okay, I think I would mesh better with a smaller school, or no, I think I'd vibe better with a bigger school, right? The earlier you can start thinking about those categories, you can narrow down what you're looking for. And then once you know what is going to work best for you, then is when you can start going to individual schools that you have researched that fit your criteria. So if you know that you're looking for a smaller school that focuses on the arts, that has narrowed down what could be a very daunting and overwhelming list of great opportunities, but it narrows it down to a more realistic and less scary collection of schools for you to look into. So I always encourage earlier, so you have plenty of time. You're not rushing at the last minute. You don't feel overwhelmed. And then you're making a very well-informed decision, because ultimately it's what's going to be best for you. And you deserve nothing less than taking your time to make the best decision. You know, you don't deserve a rushed decision that might not work best for you. So earlier is best.
So as you talked about that, one of the things that came to mind that if you could expand a little bit on when it comes to something like demonstrated interest. So can you talk a little bit about kind of what demonstrated interest is and then how looking earlier could, help a student out?
Sure, absolutely. So I think sometimes students get a little scared if they're at a college fair and they talk to a recruiter, and the recruiter tries to connect with them to get like their contact information. They're like, why do you want my information? Why do you need my phone number? We're not trying to, bombard you. We want to be able to keep in touch, because if you show that you're interested in us, we want to make sure that we cultivate that to be as beneficial to you as possible. Now, one of the benefits of that is that some schools do utilize what Donovan mentioned, demonstrated interest, which shows, hey, this person has indicated that they are interested in us. Keep an eye on that. And, maybe we'll keep a note if they, talk to us at a college fair, if they come and visit us, or they come to one of our events, they come to one of our tours, they interact with us in any capacity, because for some schools, that can bode very well for students. And that can be like a +1 for them, right? Almost like 10 points to Gryffindor, right? A student comes to a college fair, or excuse me, they come to a college fair and they talk to a counselor, 5 points to Gryffindor. Or maybe they come to an open house, 5 points to, Ravenclaw. I won't give all the points to, Gryffindor, but that can really bode well for a student if they have an interest in a school that utilizes demonstrated interest, to show the participation, to show the enthusiasm. Well, that really is a good indicator to that college. Hey, this student is serious. They're serious about us. They are serious about, their potential future with us. And that is really something that's helpful to know for a student that is considering an institution, if they do utilize demonstrated interest or not, for that very reason.
Perfect. Thank you. So when a student would sign up for a college fair, Mackenzie, and they actually will kind of walk through those doors regardless of the venue, how can you like what should they expect when they walk through those doors? Like what are they actually going to see?
Yeah. Great question, because I am personally a visual learner, and I feel like, to Katie's point of kind of going earlier is better, is part of going earlier is too, is you can get acquainted with kind of the environment and what you're about to walk into, because it can be a little overwhelming. And certain, like Donovan said, the venues can change, and because the venues can change, the size of them can change. Sometimes a college fair will only have 20 institutions represented. Sometimes there will be hundreds represented. It really just depends on what type of college fair it is. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the differences of the college fairs, but the typical setup is going to be kind of a table. Each university and college will have their own table. There's typically one representative for each institution. And like I said, it's usually someone who works in the admissions office, so a full-time employee of that institution. And they'll have all their decorations on their table to represent their university. You'll see the different logos, or always lots of giveaways, pamphlets on all of the institutions. Sometimes you'll have pop-ups that will kind of show you maybe where the university is located, or all the different majors that they offer. And it really kind of, again, gives that brand identity of the institution. And can be in a big gymnasium, a cafeteria, but typically they are organized in some sort of fashion. So maybe alphabetically, sometimes they're organized by kind of like type of institution. So a 4-year institution, a 2-year institution. Usually I feel like the most common I have seen is alphabetical order. And I feel like students and families, if families are there as well, they just kind of weave in and out through the tables and stop at the tables who they want to chit chat with. And so it's relatively informal, but of course you still want to kind of present yourself well, but it's overwhelming, the setup is, but I don't think the representatives that you speak to are intimidating or scary or anything to be nervous about. Everyone's very friendly. They want to talk to you. We are there as a representative to meet the students. We are there to serve you, to answer your questions, and we're excited to chit chat with you and hear more about what you're looking for after high school, and maybe how our institution can be a great home for you for those next 2 or 4 years. So, walking through those doors might be a little overwhelming. It's okay to feel that way. Don't feel like you are in the minority for feeling that way. It's overwhelming sometimes when I walk in as a college representative, because it can be, everyone is a little bit different, but know that at the end of the day, the representatives from each institution are there to meet with you, and we are very excited to get to talk with you and learn more about you. And again, we're there for you. So maximize that time and chit chat with us, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
I think you hit on a really funny point, and I'm not sure if you felt the same way, Katie, but when she talked about like it could be overwhelming for us, it's like I walked into a lot of venues and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be quite the time. This is huge.
Absolutely.
So looking at, you kind of hinted at this already, Mackenzie, but looking at the different types of college fairs, what could you say potentially about the different types that you would potentially see and like times of day, things like that?
Yeah. So like I said, sometimes your own high school will be the host of one. And so it's whatever high school you go to, all of the colleges and universities there represented might come to your gymnasium or your cafeteria. I feel like those tend to be a little bit smaller, but not all the time. It really depends on the size of your high school, and also maybe the town you live in. If you live in a more metropolitan area, there can be a lot of institutions nearby that will come and represent themselves at your own high school college fair. There's also statewide ones. So the acronym that you might hear Katie, Donovan, or I just kind of spit out of instinct is ACAC, ACAC. And all the different states will have an ACAC. So the Pennsylvania is PACAC. You all do not need to know that, but if you hear us say that, that is what it means. And those are statewide college fairs that are put on by an organization that works with high school guidance counselors and college admissions counselors. So we work as a tandem together to put forth a great college fair for you all to benefit from and see a bunch of different institutions across the state. And then kind of at the grandest level, there are national ACACs. So those are NACACs. And those tend to be in larger metropolitan areas. And again, those are national. So those are, if you live in Pennsylvania, there are going to be institutions there potentially from California, Texas, Arizona. It really is a very broad swath of places represented. Those are probably the most overwhelming because those are the ones that have the hundreds and hundreds. But on the positive side of that is they're very organized. It's very easy to find the places you want to meet with. There's typically more representatives for each institution represented there. So you have more opportunity to talk to someone. And again, you get a lot of exposure to different places. So those are kind of the varying levels and sizes. And then some of them happen in the evening. So if that's the case, you're welcome to bring your family, your guardians, older, younger siblings if you need to. Typically, that's kind of more of a family affair if you want it to be. Certainly met with students that are just there on their own as well too. So there's no good or bad, all works. And then there's also sometimes college fairs during the day. So if it's going to be at your high school, or maybe it happens at a nearby high school, or kind of a community-based organization might put on one for multiple high schools in the area. And it might be from 10 to 1 p.m. You go to this location and it's a bunch of high schools there, or just in your high school cafeteria during the day. And you can meet with folks there too. So they really run the gamut. And I think no matter kind of the location or time of day or who's there with you or who's not there with you, you're able to still get the most out of it, and kind of talk to people the same way you would regardless of the type of fair it is.
Perfect. Yeah, and as you said, the NACYAC, we will put the NACYAC website in our the description for this, so that will give you a lot of insight as to the different. Usually, the NAC, because they're national, they're going to be in larger cities, but you can at least see the larger cities closest to you. But also, it will link you to the different states' websites for the ACACs also. So then, that's just a helpful resource that we'll put down in the description of the podcast, so everyone can just take a look if you are interested in attending a college fair potentially. So Katie, what advice would you say, or what would be something that a student could potentially do to kind of stand out when they are going to a college fair and speaking with someone, on the other side of the table who's in admissions at the institution that they may be really interested in attending?
Absolutely. So I think that's definitely a really good question. In addition to the demonstrated interest, just, really showing that they have that enthusiasm, definitely showing that they have that interest. I know that that's obvious by the name demonstrated interest, but just knowing that, the student isn't just going there to chat a little bit to get a free pen, knowing they really have that actual interest. I think one thing that students can definitely do to help themselves stand out, one thing that I always appreciated when I was chatting with students at college fairs was when they were able to come to me with specific questions, whether it was a specific question about my institution or a specific question about something they had an interest in, something they had a passion about, and then how it could relate to the institution, right? So instead of a student just coming up to my table and saying, okay, tell me about John Doe University, right? Nothing wrong with that. But I felt like I had a better ability to have a great conversation that would be more beneficial to the student if the student said, okay, I've read about John Doe or Jane Doe, excuse me, University, and I know that they are very well known for their sciences, and I have an interest in chemistry. Can you talk about your internship opportunities to help, supplement my classroom learning? Or can you tell me about, I don't know, what extracurricular clubs I can use then to further my interest or whatever. I very much felt like I was able to have a much more, again, beneficial conversation for the student and beneficial for me to get to know them as a potential interest, as a potential applicant, to help them understand how John Doe University might fit into their potential future plans, right? Because at the end of the day, the student is just there to learn about how what my institution that I represent, how that institution offers something that could help them best prepare for their future, right? So when they're able to have a much more specific, if that's a good way to put it, much more specific, much more beneficial conversation, they're going to get more information that they can take back to reflect on, to help make their decision better rather than, tell me about your institution, which again isn't bad. It just can't go as detailed as could be helpful. And especially because, as Mackenzie mentioned, I think Donovan touched on this too. We're not joking when we say there can sometimes be a lot of people at these fairs, right? So as much as I would love to be able to have a 30-minute conversation diving into all of the awesome clubs, that are offered, or internship opportunities to supplement classroom learning, I didn't always get the chance to do that with the students, sometimes because there might be a longer line because a lot of people had questions. I was limited to shorter conversations. So being able to maximize and have the most efficient of those brief conversations. Again, I wish I could talk to students for so long and figure out the specifics for them. But unfortunately, we can't always do that with the number of people and the volume that are at those fairs. So I think being as prepared as possible can really make a student stand out, because to us, that also shows, okay, they know what they want, they know what they're looking for. All right, let's see how we can make that happen for them. So that was always something that stood out for me. Similarly, basically like having all your ducks in a row, basically like, okay, here's, I'm curious about application criteria. Here's my SAT score. Here's my GPA. Please, can you help me understand how that fits into the application part? Like just knowing that they have everything kind of organized, they have their, their focus, they know what they're looking for. I think that tends to bode well for students as well versus kind of seeming disorganized, maybe not paying attention as much. That also helped students stand out, at least to me when I was, chatting with students at college fairs.
And I can't stress enough trying to also get like the person's business card, because you only have that limited amount of time. Now, usually a lot of the times they'll give you a business card, especially if you're in a really good conversation, like people I definitely wanted to follow up with me. But trying to get someone's business card, I feel, is huge. And part of the reason too, I would say that the colleges will have you, when you were talking about demonstrated interest, that they want to capture some of your information. So they may have something like a QR code or something for you to scan to put your information in, or a card or a piece of paper for you to fill out to just say that you were there. That's also so they can also follow up the student. So those conversations are huge to be able to have when, during, but also after, to keep the, just to keep the conversation going. My sister, a few years ago, she was going to college fairs, and I was just giving her some tips, and a lot of the tips were from, I guess you could say, some of my pet peeves from what students would be asking me. And I just was, basically all the stuff you were just saying, Katie. I was like, you want to do this, you want to do this, you want to do this, because we get annoyed when you do this, this, and this. And I know one of the things that I just remember vividly telling her is like, don't go up to a school and ask, what's your most popular majors? Because so often students would ask that, and I would be like, well, what are you interested in? Like, why does it matter what I have? Like, you tell me what you're interested in, kind of what your long-term goals are. You really, really be intentional about, that interaction that's going to happen there, because that intentionality, that's going to, that's you're 5, 10 steps ahead of the next person that you're going to talk to who knows nothing about the school, if you can be just a little bit more intentional. So one of the things I remember, she texted me, one of the things I wanted to mention is some schools have something called early evaluation. So what that is at times students, if they have almost like the transcripts and everything, or a lot of the application materials with them, she texted me, she's like, oh, I already got accepted to this school and this school. I'm like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, I gave them, what my transcript says and my test scores, and they were like, yeah, you'd be accepted. I'm like, places do that? From coming from an institution, working at such a large university, that was just something that wasn't really possible for us to do. But there are some schools that do that. So, it can't hurt to do that. For some schools, it could work out for you. It definitely worked out for my sister, just because I was not familiar with that at all. I just remember, like, was this a real college that you talked to? Like, I don't get how you were already accepted. They were like, basically, as long as I passed the rest of my senior year, I'm good to go. And I'm like, okay, if that's what they told you.
Yeah,
It's incredible the opportunities now that are out there in the admissions world.
absolutely.
You got that right. So what would you say, Katie, kind of maybe on the flip side, what would be some mistakes that students you feel could make going to a college fair?
Sure. So I think mistake is a little bit of a stronger word. So what I'll do instead, maybe things that aren't as efficient use of their time. I think
Mhm.
one thing that I think can take away from a student's experience, similarly, Donovan, you mentioned here are some of the things that maybe won't bode as well for you if you do the college fair, is, for students that would come up to me similarly, like, what's your most popular major? Or I would have a student, I represented for a longer amount of time within my admissions experience or professional experience. I was with a larger institution. So we'll say there was a very vast collection of majors that were offered. A student would come up to me and say, do you have psychology? I'm like, yes, we have psychology, or we have like 4 different sub variations of it for sure. So that's just one example, just to say, try to do your research. I know if you're interested in collecting or connecting with a lot of institutions, if you're not able to do as much research ahead of time, I understand, but try to be prepared for each individual conversation, even if you have to bring a notebook, that like, okay, I'm interested in John Smith institution. I want to ask them about their this program and their whatever. Even if you have to come with like notes to refer back to, that's okay. That's going to make this, again, as I mentioned earlier, that's going to make our interaction that much more specific and that much more beneficial for you. I think overall, not maximizing your opportunity and the resources in front of you. That is a big thing that unfortunately I see for students sometimes at fairs, is students, again, not taking advantage of having all of these resources at their fingertips, right? We might not have the exact answer to your question, but gosh darn, we're going to get in touch with you. We're going to give you our business card. We're going to do our best to find that information for you. So you have limitless opportunity for information in front of you. Make the most of it. Ask the questions, gather all the materials. I mean, as long as you're not going to just like throw them on the ground the minute you step away from my table, but like, take the materials to read them later, maximize that experience, and please, please, if it's like an evening fair and your family's going to come with you, we absolutely love that, but please advocate for yourself. I understand your parents want to help you and they want to be invested because this is exciting for them too, and that is incredible. But ask your own questions, right? If you have a parent with you and they have a recommendation for a question, that is perfect. That is wonderful. Your parents have great insight, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. But your parents have great insight, or your guardians, whomever family could have really great insight. But make sure that you are having a conversation as well. I would have fairs where, unfortunately, a student would be there with their parents, and the parents would ask all the questions, and the student wasn't even paying attention, which I just felt was unfortunate because they weren't getting that information then.
Mhm.
Not that I didn't trust the parents to relay it, but I felt that was a missed opportunity for me to get to know the student, because the most special part of my job was connecting with students at fairs, seeing their eyes light up when they talk about why they are fascinated with engineering or why they love stepping on that stage to perform theater.
Hmm.
That makes it so much more special. And that helps me again create that interaction where we can really help each other get you that information. And when I can't get the chance to interact with you, I really feel like that's a missed opportunity. So I think definitely advocating for yourself. Again, I'm not saying don't bring your parents. I'm not saying your parents have to be quiet the whole time, but just make sure that you are taking advantage of that opportunity as well. Um, Asking all the questions, gathering all the information, and don't be afraid to say at a fair, I'm overwhelmed. I know I'm interested in your school, but I don't know what to ask. I would
Yeah.
get students all the time come to my table and they look terrified. And they would just say, "Tell me about your school." And I would say, "Okay, that's fine. Tell me where you're at. Do you want an overview of the school? Do you have a specific major?" Like I try to piece specific questions that could make things a little less scary for them. So just be transparent as well. If you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, just tell us. We won't bite. We love chatting with people, so we'll
Yeah.
try to work with you and meet you wherever you are to best help. So sorry, that was a lot, but I feel very strongly about making sure students take advantage of all the amazing opportunities that a college fair can offer.
Sure. One of the things I would say too is extremely important that the student make that connection with the admissions counselor, because for these different institutions, depending on where you're at, the region that that fair is in, that's going to be the region that that admissions counselor, admissions officer at that school, that they're in charge of. So they're actually going to be the ones, reviewing your application. So if it was you, for instance, Katie, and I made that, great connection, and you were the admissions counselor at the school that I was looking to attend, almost like a college essay or a college interview where you're trying to stand out. I've already potentially done that because my parents are here or someone's behind me helping me, but I'm there and I'm the one talking to you. So you're going to remember, oh my gosh, Donovan, he was amazing. He came up to me with all these great questions, after
You took
reviewing my
admission.
application. Yeah. So those are, that too, I feel is something good to point out, because a lot of the times it's potentially going to be that person that is going to be reviewing your application if their admissions office is set up in kind of a regional type thing where whatever area you're recruiting in is the area of applications you'll be reviewing to. So, Mackenzie, what role would you say a college fair really can play in, having a student actually make that decision as to this is where potentially I want to go?
I think it can play a different role depending on where you are in your college search process and depending kind of what year you are in high school. So kind of like Katie was saying, kind of the earlier you dive into the college fairs, the better is when you're in 10th grade, I think it's a great opportunity to try to figure out what type of institution and experience am I looking for after high school graduation? Am I looking for a big rah-rah state school that has Division I sports? I can go to the football games on Saturday. They have tens of thousands of students on campus. Or am I looking for a smaller liberal arts school where each class is only about 20 people maybe, and you're not going to have any large lecture halls, and things like that. So there really is such a difference in culture and the experience you have on campus between different institutions. I think there's something like 3 or 4,000 universities and colleges across just the United States.
Yeah.
And so there is a place for you out there. Absolutely. There's multiple places for you out there. And wherever you land, you're going to be happy for those 4 years. But that's a lot of options too. So when you're earlier on in the process, sometimes the college fair is just to get a feel for what this college journey is like. What is expected of me in these next few years? How do I be a strong applicant at universities? What can I do now in 10th grade that will set me up well in the fall of my 12th grade year when I am applying places? And then I think as you get older and maybe determine a little bit more of what you are looking for and what maybe what major you're interested in or what type of campus life and experience you want, then the college fair can really be that time to meet with those representatives and ask them those questions that you're not going to find on the university website, right? Everywhere has all of their majors listed. So you certainly can ask if they have a certain major, but you're also going to find that on Google and on the institution's homepage. So maybe you want to ask, what is a typical day like for a student on campus? When they're not in class, what are they doing? Or where do you eat? What are the dorms like? Again, those are opportunities to really talk with a person who's representing the university that information might not be on a website, and you might not be able to have time to go to that campus and visit in person either. So I think as you progress in the college search and that journey, you're able to ask maybe a little bit more specific questions and get more of a feel for the place. And then I think after the college fair is when you can maybe decide if you want to go and visit places in person. Maybe you're in your senior year and you've narrowed it down to maybe 5 top schools that are all maybe driving distance or things like that. And you really want to get a sense of, okay, can I see myself being here for 2 or 4 years? And do I enjoy where I am right now? And so I think college fairs are really a good stepping stone to that next phase of the college journey.
I'm so glad you mentioned the college visit, because as you were talking, I was like, ooh, I hope she mentions like actually going to visit, because I would always tell students whether they were on campus and I was doing an admissions presentation to them and they were about to go on a campus tour, or whether it was at a college fair, like regardless of, I hope you come to where I'm at, but regardless of where you go, you want to visit. Because I would always tell students and their families, like you have a sixth sense, whether you realize it or not. So within the first 10 or 15 minutes we're on a campus tour, you're going to get the feeling of, yes, this place is really good for me. I can see myself here. Or no, like, mom, dad, start the car, we can leave. Like, I'm not, this isn't something that I'm really interested in. I know people who thought for almost their entire life that they wanted to go to one specific school, and then they actually visited and they were like, I just didn't get the right vibe. And I can't put it into words, but it's literally like a vibe check that you have to do when you're on a college or campus tour, where you have to really feel out, is this for me? But definitely a good stepping stone to to get to that next stage, is to visit, begin to go to those college fairs and create your list, the younger you are, and then begin to refine that list as you go on with visiting a college campus. So what would you two both say would be kind of a tip that you would give a student going to a college fair? If you could be like, if you were potentially, thinking back to your experience, like, this is something that I wish students would have done, or, this is something that I wish I would have done potentially in their shoes, that you think they just wouldn't know potentially to do.
One thing I definitely would recommend for students is being mindful of how you are representing yourself, right? So this is kind of like an interview in the sense that you are asking us questions. We might be asking you questions to gauge your interest or, your level of engagement. Similarly, you might be asking us questions to get a feel for what we offer and how it might, fit or not fit with what you're looking for. We want to see your personality shine. We want to get to know you and how you could potentially enrich our campus environment. But with that same side, please be cognizant of how you are interacting with counselors. I have had, unfortunately, experiences where students, I don't think they were taking the experience seriously, and definitely did not represent themselves well when they interacted with me at my table. So just please, again, be mindful, especially because you don't know what institutions, or you might not know what institutions are going to be utilizing demonstrated interest. That is nice if you have that interest, but if you are also having interactions that are not so great, that could get noted as well. So please remember that you want to let yourself shine, let your personality be known, but do it in a way that is going to best represent you and who you are as a potential applicant, as a potential addition to our campus community, because that is exactly what you are. You're not just a number. You're not just a name on a file that I'm going to read when it comes across my desk. You are a person. You are an important addition to the environment that we are creating on our campus. So make sure that you are best representing that addition in a good way. So we know how you're going to contribute, hopefully how you will contribute in a positive way to that environment.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize like you're always on. Like when you're interacting with whether it be someone at the college level or even someone at the career level. Like in my job, full-time job now at the career level, you know, recruiting people for careers, like I guess people don't realize that. Like everyone you talk to could have an impact on you getting in. So that's extremely important to, you know, definitely exercise that professionalism. You don't think that way, I feel like, when you're younger, but as you get older, you really realize that every little piece kind of adds to that overall puzzle of them potentially clicking, yes, we're accepting you, or potentially no, we're going to be declining you. And then what about you, Mackenzie? Any tips that you would say that you have to give to any students?
Yeah, I will just add on slightly to something Katie said, and then also follow up with one other tip is, and in addition to kind of representing yourself well, putting your best foot forward and everything, I would also encourage students out there, don't be afraid to deviate maybe from what your friend group is doing, especially during those college fairs during the day. It's fun to be there as a friend group, and you all get excited about what your next step is going to be, and it really is so fun to experience that together and see what everyone is interested in. But your friends might be interested in a different major, a different campus life, a different type of institution than you are. And that is absolutely okay, that you guys will still stay friends and you can still talk about the experience and how to prepare for the application and everything. But don't be afraid to go and talk to an institution that maybe your friend group isn't interested in, but you've done your research and you really want to talk to them about different organizations on campus that you can get involved in, or they have maybe a really niche major that you're interested in and you want to talk to them about. It's just, don't be afraid to kind of follow what you're interested in, even if it might not be what all your friends are doing. That's the beauty of kind of life after high school, is that there are so many opportunities, and really, again, everyone will find where they belong studying what they're interested in. And it's okay to go out on your own maybe and just talk to someone different for 5-10 minutes, then you can go find your friend group afterwards. So like Katie said earlier, definitely advocate for yourself in that sense. And then just to wrap up, I know Katie mentioned this earlier, but I really just want to hone in on it if you prep ahead of time and you take notes or you research in certain places and you have certain questions and don't be afraid to bring a notebook too, or have a note app on your phone to not only have those questions prepared, but then maybe to jot down the answers afterwards. You could easily talk to
Good.
20 different institutions at the end of the evening. And I know for myself that is all going to blur together at the end of the night. But if you take 30 seconds after your conversation to jot down a few quick takeaways that you had from that conversation, good or bad, because it could also maybe eliminate some places you're interested in. Maybe you really want to study marine biology. Not every place has that. And so if you talk to places and they're like, no, we don't have this major, easy cross off the list. But it's good to make note of that so you remember which places did and didn't have that major. So whether it's a notebook, whether it's the note app in your phone, if you have that, I mean, whatever is going to work best for you. I know they blend together for me. So being able to stay organized that way, so then when you go home at the end of the night or even the next day or next week, you can kind of sit down, synthesize everything you learned and went through, and then maybe do some further research on those places that you really had great conversations with. So there's a lot going on, but there are certainly ways that you can plan and prepare and really maximize your time. And they are also such energizing times to really get excited for the next step in your educational and really just personal life. So make the most of them. Don't be scared. College fairs are super fun and really rewarding opportunities too. So hopefully everyone's able to get to ones near them or at their high school and take advantage of them.
Great advice. I would have used all of this advice if I ever went to a college fair on the other side of the table myself. But again, unfortunately, I didn't really know that they existed. But hopefully people, you know, listening to this episode at least will know not only that they exist, but how to also go about actually scheduling them. This brings us to the end of another episode of Untapped Knowledge for College. A big thank you to Katie and Mackenzie sharing their expertise of how to make the most out of a college fair. Their insights into preparation and the importance of demonstrated interest and how to approach the representative at fairs undoubtedly should help you feel a little bit more confident as you begin to navigate these events. College fairs are an extremely important tool in your arsenal of being able to not only create a college list, but then also to narrow one down. And of course, if you have any questions at all, feel free to let us know. We are more than willing to help you out as you go through any part of your journey. Let us know about if you have questions about what fairs may be in your area. We can give you some resources there, or even a list of questions that would be good questions to ask if you're kind of struggling on what would be some really good questions for schools that you're interested in to kind of go to the fair and make an impact. But until next time, thank you for joining us, Katie, Mackenzie. So glad to have you both finally on the podcast. When I started the podcast, I just remember thinking there's definitely a couple of episodes that I had both of you in mind for, and I thought we'd definitely be able to connect and have a good time, which I think we did. So thanks for your help with college knowledge, and thanks for contributing to today's podcast. But until next time, we'll see you all later.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Untapped, Knowledge for College. Join us next time as we continue to untap the wisdom and guidance essential for success on your college journey. Follow us on Spotify or click the link in the description below to follow us on other platforms. Visit our website if you're interested in booking a session.